Hi everybody, this is Theorol. You can find me on the Marble Champions Discord answering rules questions or doing the Card Text podcast with Bob and Scott where we talk about various rules conundrums, or here on YouTube where I've got a variety of videos, a lot of Marble Champions playthrough videos where I kind of play the printed material from FFG in a variety of situations, mainly going through the heroes in a progression style, but lately just playing heroes that I've played before against villains that I've played before, just trying out different options. So yeah, for today, however, this is part of my What If series that I've been doing, where I consider various alternative hero packs and what could have been done with the heroes, and as well as looking at some kind of villain tweaks. I've been looking through the various scenarios more lately. Although, if you're really interested in what would happen with the hero packs between Red Skull and what is it called, Galaxy's Most Wanted, then leave me a note. Let me know if you want to see more of that stuff. But for now, I'm going to concentrate more on the villain side. Although I will use some alternative precons as I'm going through it, as I did with Absorbing Man and the Hawkeye alternate precon. So that's my intention anyways. We'll see if it works out. Part of what I want out of these alternate scenarios generally is something that's going to be in the realm of what I can do with a precon, which is, I know, kind of murky, but I mean, I've beaten the... So, how to put this? So, I've beaten... what's it called? The Goblin scenario, mutagen formula. I've beaten mutagen formula with essentially core precons. Not every core precon, and that's fine. But like, for example, Spider-Man Justice precon, he can take on mutagen formula, and so mutant genesis, mutagen formula. They're very similar in my brain because they both have muta and gen. Anyways, mutagen formula. So mutagen formula is like the difficulty that I would shoot for, and so it's an interesting game with a precon, with those kind of precons. Now, I mean, I'm not opposed to the scenarios being harder than that, and alternative decks are interesting. I think there's a lot of deck building to be done, but just kind of as a baseline of, I mean, essentially, the way I view it is that a precon can take it on, but it will often lose. It feels really iffy as you're going through it, and like, oh wow, this is not working great, but it does work. It just kind of ekes it out, or else loses. And so, that's where I'm shooting for. If it feels like it just gets stomped and it has no chance, that's when it seems like it's too hard to me. If it feels like I had a chance, but it just didn't quite work, I did that with Expert Claw versus Thor, right? I lost. But, I was within a turn of winning. It's not like I got just shut out. I just didn't quite manage to get everything to connect. And that's fine. It's a precon. It's not supposed to be great. It's just supposed to be serviceable. And that's kind of... Anyways, difficulty-wise, that's where I'm shooting for. So I feel like precons are good for this. But, I didn't do that in Risky Business because I've played Risky Business enough times to know that it doesn't work. But we are venturing into unknown territory. I've thought about these customs for a while. I've played a few of them. When we get to Nebula and Ronin, we'll get back into territory that I've explored already. But yeah, I've just... since Galaxy's Most Wanted was released, I keep looking at it and saying, where is this not what I would have liked to see? So yeah, let's talk about Galaxy's Most Wanted. So the Galaxy's Most Wanted box, it has a lot of things, and you can see some of my alternative things that I'm going to do today here, and we'll go through each of those. But basically, the way I look at Galaxy's Most Wanted, there's 4 things that a box does, maybe, and it doesn't do any of them great. So the 4 things that I see a box doing is it's got a campaign, and the Galaxy's Most Wanted campaign leaves a lot to be desired. I would actually like to tackle that as well as part of this whole thing, but it's going to be at the end. I'm not going to do this as a campaign. The campaign elements are big and much more difficult, and I'm kind of doing this as I'm going through the videos. So yeah, that's going to be, that's a thing to be done. The second thing is the heroes. So I think Rocket and Groot left something to be desired, especially with their precons. We'll look at that today with Rocket's precon. And we'll look at it maybe next time with Groot's precon. That's probably when I'll do Groot. So yeah, there's those two things. Then there are the scenarios. So the scenarios are something that every box has, right? So we have the campaign, the heroes, the scenarios, right? So the Drang, I think, did okay. It's fine. I know a lot of people like Drang. I'm okay with Drang. I find in high player counts it gets a little out of control, especially because they kind of give you the Milano, but then they increase all of the threat and let the Milano thwart. And the result of that is that in a one-player game, it's like one threat on each thing. So if you have the main scheme and a side scheme come out, they each have one extra threat. The Milano thwarts 3. You're kind of okay, right? You get, the Milano covers both of those and has an extra threat, and so it's still a gain. In 2-player, it's about even, because you have 2 extra threat on the main scheme and 2 on the side scheme, but you don't get side schemes every turn, so that's fine. 3-player, it barely keeps up with the main scheme additional threat that you're getting per turn compared to what's normal, and the side schemes are also scaling. And then 4-player, it's out of control. The Milano doesn't even keep up with the main scheme. Plus, it has to do other stuff, right? And so if you play it solo, Drang's okay. I find 3-player, he's just out of control. The threat gain is so much, and it's led to I think at the time when Galaxy's Most Wanted came out, and some of the conversations around there is like you want to run double justice in Galaxy's Most Wanted because the threat is so out of control. And that is primarily, I think, Drang, although a little bit some of the, Nebula is also out of control. And again, the Milano's this kind of tax thing. There's a lot of problems with the Milano and how it was incorporated. And so that brings us to the last thing that a box offers, which is modular sets. So Drang, I think overall Drang's okay, but he needs to be redone. And the reason he needs to be redone is because of the modular sets. Now, it was a conversation recently where someone talked about how much they loved the modular sets from Galaxy's Most Wanted, which is kind of weird to me because I don't like the modular sets from Galaxy's Most Wanted. I don't hate them. They're okay, and they've come into their own a little bit more as time has gone by, but still just wish they were a little bit different. So in Galaxy's Most Wanted, there's several modular sets. There's a lot of them, which is great. And some of them are good and some of them aren't great. So the 2 main ones that I have a problem with are the Milano and the Power Stone, which, okay, those are barely modular sets, right? They're all forced inclusions in the scenarios they're included in, and they're kind of more of this kind of the what would you say, like the campaign style thing that's going on in the story. They're weird in that they're like extra easy modular sets to include in other villains. And I don't love that personally. I mean, I'd rather the villains were balanced and we didn't have to include easy modular sets. But it's interesting to see why they're easy and why they don't make Galaxy's Most Wanted easy, because Galaxy's Most Wanted is hard and it has both of these modular sets in it. So anyways, that kind of, so Power Stone we'll talk about with Nebula because that's where it shows up. Actually, no, we'll talk about next time with Collector, because Collector, I think, should have had the Power Stone. And that's going to be a whole thing. But today we'll talk about the Milano. So let's look at the Milano first. There's other modular sets. I'll talk about those in a minute. So the Milano. Okay. So start Ship Command. The Ship Command modular set, as it shows up in Galaxy's Most Wanted, you get the Milano. And in each scenario where the Milano is included, the villain gets a ship. But that's not part of the Milano. The Milano is this 1 card, plus these 3 treacheries, plus an attack treachery, and 1 side scheme, which is Cannonade, which I've completely redone here, and an environment that everybody hates that has Surge and deals damage to you, and you have to exhaust the Milano and spend 2 resources to kill it. So, what if the Milano, the ship command, was a really interesting modular set? What if it brought to each game essentially what it brings to the default scenarios in Galaxy's Most Wanted, being Drang and Nebula and Collector even, and Ronin, right? Like it's in all 4 of those scenarios, and it has these ships that it's fighting against. And what if those were like part of what the Milano was as a modular set? And so that's kind of what I've attempted to do here. So in order to do that, I have to kind of streamline some things and bring them in line so they're all similar. This is still a far cry from the Lord of the Rings ships, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. I know Lord of the Rings is really evocative and thematic, and that's not what I'm looking for in Champions. I don't love the Lord of the Rings LCG as much as I like Champions. Not just because it's superhero themed. I like Lord of the Rings theming at least as well as I like superheroes. But it's just so streamlined. And that's one of the things I love about it. So that's kind of the goal here, is we're going to try and include some of that element, some of that theme, and some of what's going on with the ships, but without having to go through all of like the boarding tests or boarding deck with, things fight your ship, but then minions fight your heroes, and there's a lot of cool stuff. Don't get me wrong, it's cool, but it's just not very Champions. So okay, so how does this work? So basically we have this environment, Starship Operations, which starts out in play, according to I've just made up a rule card for it because it's complicated. And well, what are you going to do? So here's the rule card for it. You put the Milano support and Starship Operations environment into play. Then you select a vehicle. So Starship Operations triggers your vehicles. Basically the same way Drang does. So, if you love Drang, it basically says every scenario with the Milano is now Drang, which is, cool. It's not quite that because I switched some things up, and we'll see how those work out in play here today. I've tried some of these ideas elsewhere, but that works. So you select a vehicle environment from the ship command set and put it into play, and then you set aside the remaining ones out of play. So all of these vehicle environments, they are the ships that the Milano can go up against. So we have the battle cruiser. The battle cruiser is basically Drang's ship. It gets barrage counters, and then when it has a certain number of barrage counters, it deals 3 indirect damage to each player. The barrage counters scale with number of players, so since the damage scales with number of players, right? Of course, it only gets 1 per turn, so maybe that means it should scale on that side, but it works. It's scaling. I like good scaling. It's not quite 100% scaled because it's just damage, and also you have this ability to exhaust the Milano to delay it. So it's kind of this idea that the Milano is fighting against the battle cruiser, and so you can exhaust the Milano to delay the bombardment from it, but eventually it bombards you. You can't delay it forever. I mean, you could conceptually from here. Just this fires off once per turn, start of each turn. Also fires off though when the villain schemes. So if the villain schemes, well, you're out of luck. You could exhaust the Milano, delay it, or you can just take the hit and let it start over. But also, there's all these other cards that exhaust the Milano and interact with Milano. Maybe you don't want to exhaust it all the time. Or things like the ship's engineer from Drang. It's just the Badoon engineer. Straight copy. It activates the ship. The special environment on the vehicle, right? So if that comes out and you already exhausted the Milano, well, you're getting blasted. So, there's some amount of this. This might be too fast. I've considered that. This lets you get 2 uses out of the Milano before it starts firing. And then you could just let it fire, and then you'll get another 2 uses out of the Milano before it fires. So that's 2 resources for 3 damage. That's not terrible. It's 2 plus 1 per player for 3 damage for each player. So that this kind of where the scaling's coming from in my mind. Now, of course, if he schemes, if you have these other things happen, then that's when it gets a little worse. However, I would not personally use the battlecruiser for Drang, and that's why it's got the museum ship picture there. You might recognize from the collector scenario if you've ever paid attention to the picture of the museum ship after you flip over Library Labyrinth. But that's basically what the Library Labyrinth does too. It's also random damage. It's also what the Rogue Vessel does, is damage. So, you can just view this as abstractly. It's what all of those ships are. And I've called it a battlecruiser because I feel like that's fitting for this barrage style thing. For Drang, I made up a new ship because it feels like what Drang is trying to do is be this kind of minion heavy scenario. He does that by having a lot of minions, but then he doesn't interact with them really. So instead, I've given him a troop transport. He's trying to invade. How's he going to do that? He's going to use troops. So we have this troop transport. It picks up support counters. When there's 3 or more support counters, you have to either, again, exhaust the Milano, try and delay the troops, or discard cards from the top of the deck until you get a minion, put it into engage with the first player. So you get 1 minion every 3 turns, unless you exhaust the Milano. So it's a little bit Zola-like. This one does not scale, and the counters don't scale. Great. One minion not scaling. Now you get kind of 4 uses out of the Milano here, so that's a plenty for a minion, and maybe it's too much, but that's what I picked. We'll see. We'll test this one out today. Maybe it's too slow. Then we have what is essentially Ronin's ship. So Ronin gives you extra encounter cards. That's what this one does. This gives an encounter card per player, so it scales, and it's 2 per player counters. So also straight scaling there. Of course, you can exhaust the Milano. That doesn't scale. So, there's always interesting things going on. I think scheming doesn't scale. These other encounter cards, they don't scale. So, there's stuff. It's not perfect. It's not designed to be perfect. It's designed to be interesting. But that's what happens. Patrol ship detects you and deals you encounter cards. My imagining for this is that this is actually maybe the ship that the collector would have, at least when you're infiltrating. What's he doing? He's patrolling. So one thing I would change is that you would get the Milano in every scenario, including Collector 1. That requires reworking Collector 1. Collector 1 needs reworked anyways. I've got some major things in store there. All right, Nebula's ship. Nebula's ship uses evasion counters, but instead of adding threat, because that's oppressive, it stops damage, which I think is interesting, and might particularly be interesting with Nebula, especially with the way that I've reworked her entirely. But one thing we get rid of is attacks. And this time, because villain healing is so minor, you just can stop it once. So like kind of when you're at the end of the game, you probably want to stop this. Or if it's getting out of control and you really need to damage the villain for purposes. But, it's fine. They just get these evasion counters. You can bing and punch the villain and clear off the evasion counters as you go. We'll see. 3 might be too much. 3 per turn. That's a lot of hit points for the villain, but maybe it's not too much. Maybe it should be per player. I did think about that at some point, and then I didn't do it. 1 per player is maybe better. I might change that. Anyways, we'll see how it goes when we get there. Or I may have changed it by then, because I'll think about it more over the next few weeks before Nebula goes. And then finally, the actual Ronin ship is the flagship. And this is just, when I was thinking of putting all these ships together, it's a shame you only get to use 1 ship, right? So what if you got to use another ship? What if you had a ship that just brings in ships? So that's the flagship. And the flagship will just keep bringing in ships. Now, you can try and time it so that you're using the Milano to kill a bunch of ships just before they all fire off. It doesn't really work great with the Interceptor because the Interceptor's not really doing anything while it's out, unless you're trying to damage the villain, in which case maybe it's messing with you. And, it's fine. I think it's fine. It'll work. Because it's going to keep bringing in ships, brings in a ship every turn. And so you just kind of, it becomes this massive, fleet war going on. And that seems fun to me, and possibly cool, and possibly awful. I don't know, but this gets to me what, Ronin should be maybe doing with his fleet. If this idea that he's leading, this whole fleet of stuff, why not throw it into here? So that's the flagship. Then over here we've just got a few new cards. We've got the ship's engineer, as I mentioned. efficient operations, which is basically just bombard from Drang. Just move it over here, activates all the ships. Cool. Looks like cannonade, because cannonade doesn't exist anymore. And then we have cut the power, which exhausts the Milano if it's not already exhausted. But then it readies the Milano if it is already exhausted, which gives you some options that are interesting. But you can't ready the Milano while it's out because they cut the power to the Milano, right? And you have to stop them. Hey, that's a picture from Ronin. That's a side scheme from Ronin. It's totally different there. Yep. So, hey, Ronin's getting reworked. Surprise. And then finally, Rogue Vessel. I reworked. Obviously, I used the art there, so I picked up some new art. I would have used this art, but I didn't have the full of this art, and I didn't want to try and edit out all the environment stuff, so I just picked new art. Another ship from the Marvel Universe. And I don't remember what the art's from. Igor Bone could find it in a heartbeat, though. Let's see. So, anyways, it just puts in a new vehicle and resolves the special ability on that vehicle. So you get one special resolved immediately. And then you can exhaust the Milano and spend 2 resources, just like the normal rogue vessel, to discard it. But it just gives you another ship to work with. Again, kind of like the flagship, the idea is instead of it being a special ship that's always in play, how about if you just have one of these as a rogue vessel? The flagship doesn't work this way. You might can see why, because the flagship activates, puts out a ship, then you need to exhaust the Milano to clear that ship, then you need to exhaust the Milano to clear the rogue vessel, and yeah, you can't do that. So, because it's already been exhausted. So anyways, that's why I said no flagships. Also, if you had the flagship, you could discard other vehicles, which includes the original vehicle, and things got weird, so no. And then we have these 3. I took away the activation, so we don't get the activation of treachery. I don't love extra activation treacheries, and yeah, I don't know. I don't have like another reason for that. Just a thing that I wanted this to not be too big, because once you start really reworking all the modular sets, obviously, this is a lot more cards. Right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards now instead of 6 cards that it used to be. So we've got 2 extra cards, and with that treachery, it was 3 extra cards. And by taking away that treachery, that buys me another card that I could use somewhere else. So I don't know. It becomes the Starship Operations card, I guess, because these 5 ships all exist, and that's all. Seems fine. So yeah, if you were trying to make this, actually, you would probably use the labyrinth for the Starship Operations, and the ships plus the treachery for the 5 ships, and then have these. So kind of how it works. That's the idea. Suddenly the Milano is something you can take anywhere, and I think it would provide interesting interactions regardless of what scenario you're in. Okay, so having explained that, let's talk about Drang. So the big thing is, as I mentioned earlier, that Drang has so much extra threat because of the Milano, and it's kind of oppressive. So I've just, the Milano no longer thwarts, and he no longer has extra threat. He does. There was a weird thing that they did. I understand why they did it. So Drang requires the Milano, and then his cards interacted with the Milano. So he had the ship's engineer that interacted with his ship, and then he had all of his schemes and his side schemes that added extra threat, and so that meant all of the minions got kicked out into a modular set. And it's kind of weird the way they did that, and I understand why they did it, but what the effect of it is that stuff, you end up with this weird, Drang doesn't have any minions, even though he's kind of a minion scenario. At least his stage 3 is minion heavy. So what's going on? And even the stage 2 of his scheme interacts with minions, but you could run him with like no minions, and he would only have the ship's engineers. So, okay, ship's engineers are kicked out. I've pulled in 3 minions from his modular set, 2 grunts and a lieutenant, because that feels like, okay, that's an invasion, right? And then he has this group, which is kind of like the commando group, right? The Band of Badoon is a group of commandos, 7 different Badoon. And then I like when modular sets also have side schemes, just because most of them have had side schemes, and so it's kind of nice to have a side scheme plus a group of minions, not just a group of minions. I know that's not a huge deal, it doesn't really matter. It just bothers me a tiny bit when there's no side schemes. It still bothers me a little bit that there's like no treacheries here. All the treacheries are over here, and I took one of them out. So yeah, he has the standard treacheries, and he has the ship command treacheries, and that's it. So that's a really low treachery count. That's the way Drang is. I think some people are happy with that. That's why they like Drang. But I do think it's a little weird. But I didn't disrupt that. It's fine. Drang can be weird. Since I took away the Milano interaction, I wanted to give some other interactions. So what's Drang doing? Drang's invading. And I do like a little bit the bombardment effect. I don't like it, but I think, I don't know, adds some flavor to the invasion idea. So we've reduced the threat per turn to 1 in both of his schemes. They have threat of 1, and then there's a forced response after step 1. Discard the top card of the deck if it has a star icon, then everybody takes damage. So it's not quite a boost worth of indirect damage. It's just 1 indirect damage or 0. But it's on star icons, which there's a lot of star icons, so it should fire off a good amount, but not all the time. A little bit of extra damage should be on the level of what his ship was doing. Maybe a little more frequent, maybe a little less, less than 50% of the time, 1 indirect damage. That's about the 2 every 4 turns that his ship does. Obviously, scheming doesn't increase this, and there's no other way to implement it. It just doesn't happen all the time. It just happens then. A little bit of extra indirect damage comes from this side scheme, which is the bombardment side scheme reworked. Just after he activates you, you take an indirect damage. Hey, cool. A little extra indirect damage along with the amplify icon merged into here. And then he has a blockade. I thought I like it when side schemes give you a bonus, so the blockade now gives you a bonus, lets you draw a card. But if you can't clear it immediately, reduce your hand size. Just going for thematics here, really. Just trying to make it interesting without the Milano thwarting. His spear is the same. I didn't change the card. That's why it has the wrong numbers on the bottom. Because he now only has 11 cards instead of 13. Because he lost the ship, and he lost some side schemes. And he gained some minion. He gained a single minion. Okay, Bandit Badoon is all the same as before, except for 2 less grunts and 1 less lieutenant. And then it gets this side scheme, which is just an interesting hazard side scheme that throws in a bunch of minions at you when you clear it. So, I don't know. I like those kind of side schemes. They're fun. Because side schemes are always... I feel like the side scheme decision making isn't very interesting a lot of times, because it's like, here is a low threat hazard scheme. Okay, I'll clear it. Here's a high threat hazard scheme. Okay, I'll bend over backwards to clear it. Here is a high threat acceleration scheme. Okay, I'll ignore it. Right? It's more interesting if it's kind of like, okay, it's a hazard scheme, so you definitely would clear it, except for it's going to hurt you when you do. Are you ready to clear it? It's only 1 extra encounter card if you don't clear it, whereas it's 1 per player if you do. Less interesting in the multiplayer or solo. But, you know, hazard's pretty bad solo, so I'm okay with that. And they are all 3 threat, which is, to me, standard threat counts, unlike... I feel like they're all 4 in Drang, but maybe not. I might have just kept those threat counts alone. It's the less than... It's only 1 per player instead of 2. Okay. That was a lot of talking. I probably missed some things. I don't know if I talked through everything and in a meaningful way, but that's the gist of what's going on. So, yeah, I mean, mostly there's just other minor text. Oh, I went ahead and added Drang's 3, because I think this is such an interesting effect, and it's cool when it happens. But it only gets to happen for expert players. Let's let it happen for standard players too. If you lose stage 1, that's what happens. You get a bunch of minions. That feels like, you know, escalating the invasion, right? So, yeah, I like all that. So, all right, there we go. All the villainous stuff. Okay, and we're going to give Drang the troop transport, and the rest of these are going to be set aside. I'll throw Starship Operations under here so that I can try and remember to do it. I'm actually going to set aside the flagship separately because you can't ever get the flagship. If we get a rogue vessel, it'll be one of those. Here's a troop transport with that, and we get the mono. Okay, let's talk about Rocket. So, Rocket Racoon. Real quick, here is his modified Precon. So what did I do? I threw away some terrible cards. He still has some terrible cards. I gave him a side holster because really that should not have been delayed. That was stupid. I got rid of hand cannon because he has enough restricted items. He doesn't need a hand cannon. I also, let's see, so then we have follow through, which is still here, into the fray, which is still here, looking for trouble, which is still here. I gave him dive bomb because I like Rocket with dive bomb. I think it's a good include for him. Overall, it gives him some damage that he's lacking to punch through. And he gets relentless assault because of course he does. I kept him with booster boots, but now there's only 2 of them, so it's not a complete waste of space. I left him with Groot and Bug. I added Throg and Angela, who both like minions and have interesting interactions with them. And I gave him Nowhere. So, yep, that's kind of the idea. So, there are a lot of wasted basic cards in the Guardian set, so I can kind of move things around as I want to. I feel like let's just pretend like they didn't include random garbage reprints and instead included good reprints. I don't know. Maybe we'll still have them have included the random garbage reprints. I haven't really thought these things through since that first set. So these aren't nearly as carefully constructed with the future in mind as those were. But it's a rocket deck. Might not work great. We'll try it out. Anyways. Ooh, we started with a side holster and a particle cannon and thruster boots. So we've got aerial. We could have a plan, but we don't need a plan. But we do like thruster boots, because thruster boots gives us a good bit of thwarting. We certainly don't need to dive bomb, and we do not need to follow through at this stage, I would say. So 1, 1, 2. So if I get a double resource, I can play the particle cannon and the thruster boots, and the side holster, which would be great. I did not get that, so that's sad. I did, however, get Angela if I want to kill a minion. Well, we'll just see how that goes. Okay, it's my turn. Oh, I have mono. That's right, I have the mono. I could already do it. Ah. Silly Theoral. 1, 2, 3, plays particle cannon. Play Angela. Grab a minion. Kill it. Overkilling it, drawing a card. That lets me play thruster boots and side holster. Great. I like that. Alright, we play Angela. What? I have no idea what just happened. There we go. Alright, got 10 cards. So, I knew that card was in here. I knew that card existed. I had no advantage to going hero mode first, so I'm just going to pretend like I stayed alter ego. Yes, that is a little bit of hindsight cheating, but it was dumb of me. I didn't need any resources to play her. She's not a hero card. Okay. So he does not engage my hero. He doesn't get to free attack me. That's great. 1, 2, 3. Particle cannon, which has 2 counters on it. Spend the particle cannon, kill this Badoon assassin, Overkill by 3. Overkilling gets me a card. Cool. I pay 1 for thruster boots. I pay 0 for a side holster. I thwart for 2. And Angela's going to go ahead and get things moving on Drang. 5 cards. Poor timing. 1 threat, 1 counter. Drang attacks me. Move that over there. For 3 plus a boost, this is probably going to hurt. Not much I can do about it. Ooh, it's only 3. Thanks, Drang. Shoot. I forgot something major, and it totally messes with everything that I did. To the point where I think what I would have done is gotten out my pistol instead of my particle cannon. So that would have saved me 2 resources, is that right? It would save me 2 resources. So that would have cost me a side holster and a schadenfreude. Okay, 1, 2, 3. That was 2 fists and a mental. Where is it? There it is. 2 fists and a mental. Discard. Anyways. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's just to make this so that I'm not just cheating the whole game. I definitely could have done it, and that would have been fine. I probably couldn't have planned to do it the way that I did, but that's okay. That's the best we can do. Alright, single encounter card. It is cut the power. Darn it. 3 threat, and the Milano cannot be readied. Okay, actually that's fine. I get to exhaust to clear it and ready the Milano. Unfortunately, I don't have any minions, and there's a really limited amount of stuff I can do with this hand without any minions. Because look, I can play Booster Boots. Isn't that fun? This only attacks minions. And this only works with Groot. I'm going to keep a double resource because double resources are useful. And Angela is going to punch him for 2. I'm going to save my pistol. One threat, 1 counter. Not yet 3 counters. He attacks me for 3. Angela defends and takes 5. Alright, no rogue vessel. I get an encounter card. No! He schemes for 2. 3, 4, 5. After he schemes, this gets a counter. I can now either exhaust the Milano or get a minion. I think I would not mind getting a minion, so I'm going to take a minion. It's a ship's engineer. Okay, that also clears that, but then since the ship engineer engages me, put that minion to play, engage with the first player. Actually, that adds a counter because he has been put into play. Then we remove all counters. I'm going to go with that interpretation. That's another ship's engineer. Okay. Lots of engineers here. That's kind of fine though. So spend the Milano plus this for plus this is 3 for Into the Fray. Into the Fray kills him, dealing 3 overkill damage and drawing me a card. Yep, we're going to go ahead and spend Salvage to Relentless Assault him for 5 damage, 2 of which is overkill. And that draws me a card. Now let's see, Salvage first. can put my particle cannon on top of my deck. Oh, do I want to put my particle cannon on top of my deck? Yeah, that's fine. I'll just have to play it later. No. Alright, we're going to play my pistol. Then we're going to use a pistol to deal 2 damage. We're going to use another pistol to deal 2 more damage. We're going to thwart this thing for 3. He's not quite dead, but that's fine. We're going to flip alter ego. We're going to recycle this pistol. Sorry, I was supposed to already draw 1 card. And that draws me 2 more cards. And then we'll spend 3. And after spending it, we're going to top deck that. And we're going to get this particle cannon out with 2 counters on it. And draw a 6 card hand. 1 threat. Drang schemes. This goes up by 1. Drang schemes for 2, 3. Sorry, give the villain tough status. 1, 2, 3. He also, however, gets a counter on this. Now I can either exhaust the Milano or let him get a minion. I'm inclined to let him get a minion again. Darn, it's Badoon Grunt. I get an encounter card. Oh no, I typoed that. Ah, that's awful. Badoon Grunt does scheme for 2 though. Okay, and then we get a Badoon Warlord. And we are caught off guard. Darn. What if I didn't want to be caught off guard? Alright, I'm going to use the Milano to play a battery pack. Then I'm going to use the battery pack to charge up my particle cannon. Then I'm going to discard the battery pack to draw 2 cards. Okay. So I'm probably going to overkill some stuff, huh? You know what I really want? Into the Fray. Unfortunately, those are both in my discard pile, so that's not happening. I have a lot of overkilling I can do, and a good bit of thwarting I can do. Get that main scheme under control. I might just kill him. Let's see. That's always an interesting possibility. Like, if I played Bug, could I just kill this guy? He did 18 damage, but I have 4, 5, 6, 13. Yeah, no. Doesn't look like it. I don't think I can kill him. So, we're not going to try and kill him. Okay. That's decided. We're not killing him, but I need to thwart. So I'm going to flip to hero mode, and I'm going to thwart. I don't have a plan. I don't think it's even possible for me to have a plan. I don't really need a relentless assault. Do I want to look for trouble? Yeah, let's look for trouble. It's another Badoon Warlord. Cool. Alright, that's the main scheme under control. More or less. I'm leaning towards 1, 2, 3, 4, dive bomb. Deal 7 damage to an enemy. Boom. Badoon Warlord takes 7 damage. I draw a card. Deal 1 damage to each other enemy. 1, 1, 1. Rocket's Pistol deals 2 damage to this enemy. Draw a card. Particle Cannon deals 4 damage to this enemy with Overkill. Draws me a card. Oh, man. That's a shame. And I killed Drang. And he has 18 hit points. And now I discard the top 4 cards of the deck. 1, 2, 3, 4. Having discarded a Badoon Grunt, he engages me. And since he engaged me, I get an extra encounter card. Whee, what fun! Interesting. One, two, plays Bug. Bug could attack this guy for a damage. And then I could reload and draw a single card. But I could kill this guy, which I kind of want to do, because he's going to hit me for 2 damage, and that's a lot. Unfortunately, I lose my Cybernetic Skeleton to do it, which stinks. But I still think it's better than the alternative. So we're going to Particle Cannon this guy with 3 overkill damage and draw a card. It's a battery pack. And we'll Rocket's Pistol him. No. No. I might have more minions to kill. We'll just keep Rocket's Pistol. Okay, hang on to that battery pack. Battery packs are useful. 1 threat. Drang attacks me. Bug's just going to block that. That's what he's really here for, because I am so going to die if I get attacked. I'm running this real close. Exhaust the Milano. Sorry, this has one counter on it. Exhaust the Milano, or spend double energy, or discard a random card. Yeah, that's fine. I'll exhaust the Milano. Relative to other things, that's fine. It's a blockade, so that's cool. I could use that. That'll be great, actually. 1, 2, 3. Defeated. Draw card. Okay, so Throg, unfortunately, cannot be made to be tough because I don't have any minions, because I used them all up last turn. I could play a battery pack and reload. I can deal 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 14. I'm 1 damage short, really? 1 damage short. I was 1 resource short, so I had to thwart that. And unfortunately, the Milano didn't give me any good options. that particular side scan didn't give me any good options. I can get him down to 1. I could have Throg in play, who can block for me, and pretty much be ready to win. That seems fine. Let's do that. Alright, Throg's going to hit him for 2. And yeah, we're going to play this battery pack, which has 2 counters on it. We spend it to put an extra counter on here. We spend that counter and this counter to deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage. We reload all 3 of these guys. We spend another battery pack to put another counter here and deal 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, I could have used the pistol to do that, but now I can exhaust everything and not care. I get an extra encounter card. You know what? I wonder if I should have gone Alter Ego, although I could lose. Like, this goes up to 3. He schemes for 3. That's 6. If he gets a 2 boost and then advances. No, but he's going to get minions. Yeah. I don't know. Might have been better. 1 threat. Drang attacks me. Throg defense. And takes 4 damage. Thus he is defeated. This has 2 counters, by the way. Alright, we got 2 of these. First is a Badoon Sentry. Second is a Badoon Grunt. Awesome. He cannot hurt me. So that's it. Neither of those guys is guard, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I kill him. I even overkilled him. I get to draw a guard. There we go. Alright, that worked. Rocket V Drang. Just with this kind of modified starter deck. Now, this fired off twice and gave me minions, which worked great with Rocket. You know, I mean, I did pick Rocket for this because Rocket's fun. I forgot this forced response. Darn it. Forgot the forced response every turn. I should have taken a bunch of indirect damage. How many turns passed? Let's see. Do we remember how many turns passed? I don't. I'm going to suppose 6, because it doesn't seem like it's that many. Let's say 6. Not a star. Not a star. 3, not a star. 4, not a star. That's a star. I would have taken indirect damage. We got one more threat because he would have had an acceleration token. That was 5. 6. Another star. I take another indirect damage. There. Done. Okay. I might not have been as cavalier about staying in hero mode there. But it would have been fine. It was fine either way. So, here, just in case. What if he went 8? 7, 8. Look at that. Still no stars. So, yeah, he has a lot of stars. So, I'm surprised. But that worked out in my favor. That end game discarding for this effect. One thing I didn't mention, which I did a thing that I hate, but I made it a little bit worse. When he gets stage 2, it's 2 indirect damage instead of 1. I don't know. That's maybe unnecessary. A lot of things are unnecessary. This doesn't advance nearly as easily when it's not 2 threat per turn. But it feels much more fair, so I'm okay with that. Yep. Okay, cool. I had a cybernetic skeleton that I could have played finally. And Groot, he's great. And I have a bunch of minions to kill, and no counters, and no guns. So there's that. Anyways, yeah. So this was fun for me. If you like this, let me know in the comments, and I'll try and post these images up somewhere at some point. I might not have it immediately when I post this. I might though, and you never can tell how much I can get done when I'm got other stuff going on. But yep, that's it. All right, you can like and subscribe and all those things if you want, and that's great. See you next time.